Hey guys, Joebizz34 back again with another Blu-ray disc review. And this time it's the re-release of the original Ghostbusters movie from 1984 on Blu-ray, and it's another one of those movies that they're marketing it as being remastered in 4K. Okay, and this was one of the original ones. I think this was like one of the first ones they showed before they started coming out with others. Really quickly, the movie itself is considered another cult classic at this point. I love Ghostbusters. It still holds up to today. I could still watch it. It's funny. It's got some cool effects in it, especially for its time. It came out the same year as Terminator, which is 1984. And then the sequel didn't come out until, I think, 1989, I believe, or 90, somewhere around there. So there was a big gap between sequels, and I didn't like Ghostbusters 2 as much. It was nice to see something new, finally, but I don't think it came anywhere close to the fun and the quality of this first one. This first one stands the test of time. Now, I'm going to be a little more harsh on this copy than I would be on Terminator and RoboCop. Now, the reason why I bring up Terminator and RoboCop again is because they've also recently been released as remastered, especially RoboCop. They said 4K, which is like this. And they all came out in around the same time frame. 84 was the year of Ghostbusters. Terminator came out that year. 87 was RoboCop. And these are all older cult classics that are being re-released and remastered. So it's only fair to compare these to those. I wouldn't compare it to, say, like when I reviewed Pacific Rim, or I wouldn't compare it to the 4K remaster of, say, The Amazing Spider-Man, which I think is available, because those are newer movies. They look better by default. They're much more clean, much more... the HD quality is there. These films were in 3D when they were in the theaters, so it's not fair to compare it to those. So I would prefer to compare something like this to Terminator and RoboCop. So we're going to use those three as a template. Now, if you saw my other reviews, I reviewed RoboCop and Terminator a couple weeks ago, and I praised them pretty much for the price and for the improvement that I saw. I really did think it was a good buy. This movie, I think, again, it's cleaned up nicely, but it shows its age more than the other two movies. And the funny thing is, the ironic thing is that the Terminator, out of the three, you would think had the lowest budget. I would say, because in '84, I mean, this was a pretty high marketed, Hollywood film. I mean, it had Dan Aykroyd in it. It had Bill Murray, Rick Moranis. I mean, it had Sigourney Weaver. I mean, it had stars in it. It had some special effects. It was, globally released in theaters. I mean, it really, probably, I would say, was the highest budget, I would imagine. I mean, I don't have facts to back that up, but I would think this is the most highest costing film out of the three. Now, RoboCop, in theory, should look the best, you would think, when they remaster it, because it's the newest out of the three. It came out in '87, so, there was a little improvement. But not enough time has gone by, I think, to really see that significant of a difference. I mean, you're only talking about 2 or 3 years gap. Now, RoboCop, I would put second best out of three. So this is how I'd rate it. As far as putting it against these three, I would say that this is third in line. Terminator being first, RoboCop being second, and this being third as far as the qualities, this being the least. This shows its age more so than the other two. Now, I never saw the original Ghostbusters Blu-ray release, so I don't have anything to compare it to. I don't know if it's as good or better. I did some research when I was buying it, and since I didn't own it, of course, it was a no-brainer to get this copy. And I did read that this had subtle improvements, that this was improved over the original Blu-ray release. So I figured, all right, this one doesn't. The other reason why I scored this a little lower is because it doesn't come as with a better price tag as well. Right now, as it stands on Amazon, this thing still goes for like $12, $13. Whereas RoboCop and Terminator were available for $8. So it was an easier, excuse, especially if you're double dipping. $8 doesn't sting as bad, and although $13 is not that much more expensive, it still feels like a little bit more of a. It still hurts a little more, I would say, to drop another $13 if you already own the first copy. So I would say do some research yourself. If you already own Ghostbusters and you're on the fence of getting this one, I would say, look online and see what people say as far as comparing it. I don't have the other copy, so I can't directly compare. But I will judge it based on this one and say that the grain is there more, the age shows a little more. It's not as pristine looking, it's not as cleaned up looking to me. It's nice looking, And like I said, if you don't own it on Blu-ray yet, getting this copy is a no-brainer. But if you already own it, I'm not sure if this is worth the rebuy. I don't know, because again, I don't know how much different it looks from the first release. I'm going to show you something, because I actually have it on the screen now. And I'm going to focus in here if I can. And so you can see, there's an actual still. Now, of course, it's on camera. It's not going to show as clear. But I wanted to show you guys this to actually show you a still from film. So you can see on my TV, the colors look good. The skin tones are natural. They look good. Nothing looks to be altered, or you know, their skin flesh tones don't look too red or bright or you know, orangey or whatever. So they got the colors right. It's a natural color. It's clean. And like I said, it looks good for its age. But surprisingly, if you compare this to Terminator and RoboCop, out of the three, Terminator looks the best in this type of format. And the odd thing is that Terminator wasn't even marketed as a 4K disc. So it's kind of ironic that the two ones in the same time period, RoboCop and this, that say that they're remastered in 4K, look inferior to the Terminator that was the least budget to begin with and is not marketed as 4K, just saying that it's remastered. I don't know if it's 4K or not. They don't say it. I've heard some mention it, but I'm not sure, again. So it's kind of ironic that the film that had the cheapest budget and probably aged the worst out of the three now looks the best on the remastered Blu-ray. So that's kind of interesting to me. So I would say Terminator is definitely the most impressive as far as looking clean and newer with the remastered quality as opposed to this and RoboCop. RoboCop looked a little less better, although, like I said, the difference was more noticeable on RoboCop than Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters, it's a good copy. It does look sort of HD, but it doesn't quite pop the way that the others do, especially newer movies. But, you know, I have to say, all in all, it's really nice to see these movies get a remastered treatment regardless. I mean, again, with its age, there's only so much you could do with these films. You know, you're talking a long, long time ago. And it's funny because I feel that in these times, with the quality of movies and the way they've improved in the last 30 to 40 years, that even an old movie, even a movie that's like 30 years old, can still be presented in a way that it doesn't look as old. You know, when I was a kid in the 80s and my father tried to show me a movie that was made back in the 60s or 50s or even the 40s, you could tell how old they were, and you felt very outdated watching it. It was like, oh, this is old. I don't want to watch this. This is something my father watched, you know, and it was kind of funny to be that way. And, you know, especially with some films being in black and white, you know, and that kind of thing, obviously its age was more obvious. We live in a time now that from like the 70s to 80s and so on, with the improvement of the films and the HD now with cleaning up, you know, Blu-rays and all that, cleaning up a lot of these films, it's just nice to see that they're preserved better and that the age is not quite as obvious in today's standards as it was back then. You know, when you watch Ghostbusters or you watch Predator or Terminator, RoboCop, Jaws, The Shining, Star Wars, any of the classics, when they're cleaned up and put on Blu-ray, they still look, you know, presentable. They look decent compared to older films. Like when you were in the 80s and you watched a film that was 30 years old, man, there was quite a difference. Now, not so much. You know, you look at the Blu-ray of Alien. Man, does that look nice on Blu-ray. And like I said, the Terminator more recently. These films, because they are shot in color, because they were filmed in a different time, they are preserved and they last longer in the eyes of the beholder. You know, when you look at the screen, you don't get that sense of it being that outdated or that old compared to movies that you watched when you were a kid in the 80s that were from the 60s and so on. So I do appreciate the effort here, and I do think it is a good-looking disc overall. It does come with the outer sleeve here, okay, and like I said, they market it as 4K, and inside is the same thing, and it's a standard, you know, comes in here, and it gives you the little ultraviolet code and all that. There's a little graphic of Bill Murray and Winston, and like I said, overall, if you don't own it, $12, not going to hurt your pockets too much. It's a good buy. But like I said, not as quite cleaned up as impressive. It shows its age and grain slightly more. But still a great film. And if you want it on Blu-ray, go out and grab it. Till next time, guys. Peace out.